Welcome to Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. This podcast is a space for inspiration, soulful insights, and meaningful life lessons. Your host, Kimen Petersen, draws from personal stories and powerful conversations with remarkable people to help illuminate your path. These episodes reflect his lived experiences and thoughtful perspectives, all aimed at encouraging you to live life with greater authenticity, joy, and ease. Your Inner Advocate is here to help you tune in, trust your inner wisdom, and move through life with more clarity, flow, and fulfillment.
Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something. It's both painful and liberating. And I have very personal experience with this. And it's the fact that sometimes you have to fall apart so you can actually fall back together. And it's like falling apart seems like failure. I mean, we fight so hard to try to keep it together, tooth and nail, terrified that this is the end. And it feels like we're losing control, losing direction, losing ourselves even. But what if it's not the end? What if it's the beginning of something new? And there's a truth about falling apart. When life starts to unravel, maybe it's a relationship, a job, a dream, your mental health, the first thing we try to do is grip harder. And we're trying to hold it together out of fear. We fight the unraveling like a threat. But what if the truth is, sometimes the life you built isn't meant to be for the next version of yourself. Like you've outlived that version of self. Because change is scary. And so we might fight moving forward. And what if all the walls we've constructed have grown too small for who we're next meant to be? And what if falling apart becomes some kind of a spiritual definition or demolition? An absolutely necessary collapse to free us so we can rebuild something new. It's like this quote says, "Rock bottom became a solid foundation upon which I rebuilt myself." And yeah, falling apart can feel like free fall. But what if it's actually falling into alignment? What if the universe is, or life, or whatever you believe in, God, is rearranging your pieces? And it's not in order to break you, but it's in order to free you. Because falling apart isn't a collapse. It's actually, many times it's a clearing. But why? Why is falling apart necessary? Think about it. Like falling apart, it strips away the illusion. It strips away the shrouds, the roles, the expectations, the identities that you created to make it in this smaller version of your life. But these things never really fit you. They were all in order to fit in order to be liked, in order to be loved. And as you tear away all that, you're simply left with pure you. You come face to face with the base of who you are. Not the version that the world approves of. Not the version that you present to be accepted in your groups, with your people, in your society. But the version, something deep within you has been begging you to return to. Honestly, sometimes you have to completely lose the path in order to find the new one, the right one. Sometimes you have to lose the relationship so you can come back to yourself. You ever thought about that? How many of us lose ourselves in relationship? And then you find yourself when you leave that relationship. And sometimes you have to lose your certainty. It's interesting. Said it a lot. What you know for certain limits you to that certainty. What you know for certain is safe. It's the house you live in, the certainty. But sometimes you have to lose that in order to discover the courage to overcome the fear. Falling apart exposes what needs to be healed. You can see all the cracks. It exposes all the things you need to feel your way through. Like I said, you got to feel what you feel when you're feeling it, and you got to feel your way all the way through it, right to the end, because the freedom will be found in feeling. And the truth is, if you can't meet yourself at the bottom, you will never get to meet yourself at the top. This exposes everything you're ignoring, you're avoiding, you're suppressing. Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. It's the tough things, the challenges that build strength, resilience, courage. I like to say that, strength is not built on a beach in Thailand drinking Mai Tais. It's built in the middle of the storm. And when life cracks you open, new wisdom can enter, new strength can form, new clarity will emerge. I almost call it like an emotional earthquake. Falling apart often feels like an emotional earthquake, right? Everything's shaking, everything uncertain, old structures, beliefs crumbling. But maybe in a sense, earthquakes could serve a purpose. Maybe the earthquakes can reveal the weak parts of your foundation. Maybe they show you what can't support you anymore. Maybe you've been holding yourself together with perfectionism, people-pleasing, overworking, or pretending you're fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, I'm fine. How are you? Fine. When those old structures give out, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means something deep within you is saying, this version of life is too small for who I am becoming. Because sometimes when things are falling apart, they may actually be falling into place. The old pieces fall so the new pieces can fit. So I want you to take a deep breath. Think about a moment in your life when everything felt like it was crumbling. The moment you weren't sure that you'd make it through. Come a little bit closer to now and you'll see you made it. And you're here. And you're listening and you're growing. And you're becoming. The breaking point was not your ending. It was your turning point. Falling apart does humble you, but it also wakes you up. It forces you to rebuild from truth instead of fear. To rebuild from authentic instead of from a survival mode. The truth is you don't drown by falling in water. You drown by staying there. And falling apart is the water. And rising again is the swimming. So let me tell you a personal story. And if you've listened to a lot of my episodes, you've probably heard this before, but this is the inspiration for this episode in a sense. Because there was a point in my life when I hit the worst moment of my life. The truth is I always knew I wanted to help people. I was always working towards it in this way or that. Tried writing, I thought about going back to school. But something in the background was always telling me I should be doing more, that I was here for more. And yet, one of the reasons I do all this conversation, all these podcast episodes is to help other people find their way through this, because the truth was the frame I'd had for life was keeping me in place. And I needed to learn to reframe. My internal dialogue was keeping me afraid of growing. But the only hope I had was growth. So I was in my mid to late 30s. And I had this, you know how sometimes it's easier to stay in place, to kind of just go with the flow rather than taking a risk and moving forward. But we're fortunate the universe is not going to let us miss the big things. The only problem is if we don't take action, eventually it will for us. So I finally decided that maybe I couldn't be somebody who really helped people, but at least I could have an important job. And I took a job that was probably too much for me. And the stress was unbelievable. At one point, I was waking up at 3 a.m, wide awake, and can't go back to sleep. So finally, I just go into work and work. I could always feel my heart beating through my chest, and I was sweating all the time. And then one day it came to a head after an emergency call on a Sunday, and I couldn't catch my breath, and my chest was hurting, and I went to my clinic, the clinic I went to, and they rushed me into the doctor, and then they rushed me up to St. Paul's, thinking I'm right into the coronary unit. So, thinking I was having a heart attack. And I was sitting in that hospital bed going, great, this is how it ends. And going through all the thought process that, yeah, I knew I was supposed to be doing something bigger with my life. But like a very wise man once said, that humans will do more to avoid pain than they will to achieve pleasure. And the truth is, up to that point, the pain of changing, the pain of moving forward, the pain of going back to school was way greater than the pain of staying the same. And in that moment, laying in that hospital bed, I finally realized that my pain of staying the same was now death, which was much greater than the pain of change. So I said, lying there, said to the universe, I don't know if anybody's listening, but if you're, help me get out of this. And I promise I'll figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with the world, with my life. And then within 2 weeks, I put in my notice and I quit the job, not knowing where I was going to go. And I was on the bottom, the lowest part of my life. I had no work. I burned the bridges. I could never go back to that work. Same work I've been doing for a very long time. Everything was crumbling down around me. I was reminded of this thought I used to have. It's like when you're lying on your back in the bottom of the deepest ditch in the darkness, you look up, all you can see is stars. Any movement from this point is improvement. And like Phoenix rising from the ashes, I started moving in the direction of my true hopes and dreams, of who I'm really supposed to be. And it was hard. But the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of change. And I got into this job that I love, that I make a difference every day. And I moved forward even further, and now I'm doing these podcast episodes. And my goal, my dream, is to have an impact on every person on the planet. Like, that is my completely lifelong, unachievable goal. And yeah, it's an insane goal, but I'm going to go for it like it's possible. Because the truth is, if you go all out on an absolutely impossible goal and you measured where you were when you started that goal and where you've at the end of your life, you would be so much further along, so much closer than you ever would have been had you not set the goal. And that is the goal. It's not about the outcome. It's about the process. Do I have bad days still? Yes. Am I having an incredible impact on the people around me? I think so. Do I want to have a greater impact? Oh, hell yeah. And I'll just keep on working on it. I'll try again anyway. Maybe someday I'll really get this message down so it really lands. So after all that and after I started going back to school for this, I realized that, and this is the thing, from that point on the ground, looking up, everything is up. But falling back together doesn't happen all at once, right? It's small, it's little tiny bits, mostly invisible, happening so slowly and gradually, just like healing. One morning you wake up and you breathe a little easier. There's a day that you laugh and you're not forcing it. there's a moment you realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're actually starting to feel alive. You're starting to move in the direction of your goals and dreams. And rebuilding happens slowly and beautifully. You start choosing all the things that are aligned with your new life. And letting go of anything that doesn't. You start connecting with your strengths rather than focusing on your weaknesses. You get quiet enough to actually hear your own intuition. You start seeing your value, your worth. You start realizing that the falling apart was not the failure. It was your rebirth. The truth is, there's nothing stronger than a broken person who has rebuilt themselves. Nothing. Because they no longer feel fear around falling apart. It's just like the people I know that have faced the potential of death no longer fear death. They fear not living. And in the rebirth, your new self, it does emerge quietly. It's not a roar. It's not fireworks. It's just a deep knowing. You trust yourself more. You make choices differently than you did in the past. You love yourself more boldly. And you start speaking the truth that once you just swallowed. You walk away from the things that once trapped you. Your life starts to feel like it's actually your life. And you literally fall back together. Not into the person you were, but into the person you were always meant to become. And I'll tell you a truth that I've realized. Maybe two truths. First off, everything I've been through built me. It's all on purpose. It's intentionally, and it's on the purpose of my life. And I am who I am because of the sum of my parts. And yeah, sometimes there was a time when all the parts were arranged incorrectly, and we had to fall apart to put them back together. But the truth is, of all the tough things I've been through, if they said you could do it all over, you could do it differently if you wanted. I'll tell you the honest truth that as long as I knew what I was coming back to my life now, where I am, helping people every day, as long as I knew that I could come, that the whole path was leading me back to this, I would go through it 10 times harder. And it's the honest truth when I say, if life decides it's time to level up again, to go up to a higher level, to do something bigger, something beyond what I'm doing now, and the only way to get there is to fall apart, then I'm in. I'm not afraid. If you could take this frame, this would be an amazing frame to live by. Every single breakdown carries within it the seeds of a breakthrough. When you're going through, you're not actually you, the true you. Who you're meant to be is not falling apart. Who you're meant to be is actually rearranging into something stronger, something truer, something freer. You're falling together. Thanks for spending this time with me again. Please keep reframing the things that are not serving you. and building your own inner advocate.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.